Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. My name is Leonard Brackett. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 300. 300. Uh, I'll be your chairman for tonight, being Friday, and we'll be discussing some serious constitutional matters, as well as case laws and other legal issues. Uh, I don't see any of my other co-hosts in the background yet, so I'll, let them come in at the time that they're available. In the meantime, in the interest of timeliness, I'm about 5 minutes, 10 minutes actually off schedule, and so I have to launch, and I'll just follow the same pattern that we do on our platform, which is to say a short prayer and then read a short verse. I'll bow my head in the meantime and say a short prayer. Divine loving Father, we come before thy presence once more, asking that thou would hear our humble petitions, that thou would grant us wisdom, knowledge, understanding, perseverance, and the fortitude to be able to deliver the message that we have for tonight, and that we may be able to do it in such a way that it accrues some positive benefit to those who listen. We pray that thou mayest bless our family members, friends, and loved ones, wherever they are. Thou knowest them by name and number. Please continue to look after them and guide and protect them. And please look after our country of Belize, its people and leadership. Please just look after this country of the United States, its people and leadership as well. And especially the rest of humanity, those who are in danger and harm's way, those who have need of food and clothes and shelter. Be merciful unto them as well, Lord Father. For we ask these mercies through Jesus' most precious name. Amen. I'll move along and pick a short verse, short prayer. I still don't see anyone in the background yet, so I'll just keep moving along as time goes by. Let's see. I'll do a reading from the book of Job, and I'll read verse 13, which goes as follows. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. Verse 14. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the ox were plowing, and the asses feeding besides them, and the Sabians fell upon them and took them away. That is, they stole them. Yeah, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am the escaper, alone to tell thee. So there we have a scripture for tonight, apparently, and that is just picked out of the blue. That wasn't something that I scheduled or had decided to pick specifically because it aligns with what I'm about to say tonight. But it just so happened, we've been lucky these recent days that every time the scripture is chosen, either by Mr. Wade or myself, it falls in line with something that we have in mind. I'd say that's not necessarily just by coincidence. I want to attribute that to some divine providence, because what I'm about to tell you about tonight, it falls right in line with that. That is that the patrimony of those who brought the message and gave the message to elders of the house who was partying and enjoying themselves, like all Belizean people are always partying and enjoying themselves. And for what reason or another, for whatever reason or another, they seem to be oblivious about the catastrophe that we are involved in and that we are facing currently and ongoing. But let me get into the subject of the night, and hopefully it will reveal itself as regards to really what's happening in our country and how is it that most of the people are still apparently asleep while the robbers of our patrimony are taking us to the cleaners, doing all manner of evil and harm against our brothers and sisters, while the powerful people are fattening themselves at the trough. Uh, if you'd spare me a minute, I'd just like to launch the other part of our program. We normally do that when the program is started. We can't launch it before it starts, and normally when it started, I'm trying to launch it while either Mr. Wade is doing his reading and or his commentary, or when something else is going on that gives me a little break. Now I don't have that luxury of the opportunity to have my co-host with me currently, but I still have to make sure that at least in the interest of the other people who listen to us on the other platforms, that they are, cued in. So if you allow me a minute and a half at the most of airtime, I'll try and see if I can get this stuff launched quickly. So please bear with me and have patience. Okay. Okay, so I'll make this public, and then I'll do my other adjustments here quickly. Edit. I gotta edit something here quickly. The title. So just bear with me as I said. I'm fair show. Number 300. I can put a comma on this stuff before I forget. Okay. I'm almost there. Just please bear with me. And then I have this is Friday. 30th. May. So, May. Yeah, 20, 24, okay. I'm almost there. Just another few seconds. Okay. Two more. Let's see. 1, 2, and that's it. That should be okay. I'm finished with that. Thank you very much for your patience and your indulgence. I need one more other thing to do, but I'll leave that hoping that I may get a little break at some point to bring that in. I'll just like to kick off the program for tonight, and I'll do so by going to, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let me take off all these extra stuff that I have here because I don't want to create any unnecessary issues while I'm on the air live. So I'll deal with that. Okay, my people, sorry about that just now. I needed to do the other launching, and There's one more launching that I need to do, but I'll forego that in the interest of time and just try to do the best I can here moving forward. For tonight, uh, most of the people in Belize, or at least a number of people in Belize, would know that our constitution is being put on the chopping block with the idea of eviscerating our current state status. That is that the current leaders that we have in the country are hell bent on changing our constitution to make it into a more pliable constitution to serve their ultimate agenda or deviousness. That is to say, turn us into a Republic of Belize without, while leaving us as a defenseless pauper for our mortal enemy to the west and the south to continue pouring into our country massive amount of people. They have 17 million people, and we have less than 500,000 people. And they're migrating their people into our area and taking over the lands with the acquiescence and support of the fifth columnists that we have in our country and others. Not to say the least that these fifth columnists, some of them, are operating at the highest level of our governance power, wielding our governance power to achieve that ultimate objective of theirs. I think it was on April, what was it? No, it was May. It was June, May of this May that we're in, a little earlier in the year. I don't have the exact date on this particular item that I'm going to read. As a matter of fact, yes, I did. On the 26th of May of 2025, the following commentary was made by Leonard, Brackett, being myself, regarding Honorable Prime Minister Mr. John Briceño's House speech on the bogus illegal change to the Belize Constitution. And I titled the item that I wrote, Belize Constitution Violation and Bastardization, Bogus Illegal Changes so as to be able to commit state crimes to fight petty crimes, especially in the Black community. I went on to say, Mr. John Briceño, you are operating as a bamboozler extraordinaire, as well as an autocratic scofflaw, sir. I opened bracket and made a statement there to the Honorable Mr. John Briceño as our Prime Minister. I said, sir, go and read and learn the Belize Constitution, Part 1, Section 1, and Section 2, Subsection 1, as well as Part 2, Section 3, all the way through 19, inclusive, as well as Section 20 and Section 95, etc. I went on to say as well, Belize is a constitutional democratic state as stipulated in Section 20, not Section 20, as stipulated in Part 1, Section 1, noted above. And I also indicated that Belize is not an autocratic or dictatorial republic, at least not yet, because that is what he and his cabal is attempting or trying to get us to be. Neither you, I said, neither you nor anyone else, you, the you being the Prime Minister and his minions, the other cabal members of the cabinet, or anyone else is above the laws. I went on to say, anyone violating the Belize Constitution should be prosecuted, including you, for derogation of your sworn oath to hold fidelity to the Constitution and people of Belize. I do not see any of our other panelist members, so I'll just proceed. I did go on to say, in addition, we are forgetting what the politicians do when they go to the Governor General for assent of powers to govern Belize, because that is the way things are done in Belize. We have a Governor General who is accountable and serves at the pleasure of the head of state and should not be serving at the pleasure of the Prime Minister instead of the head of state, because that would be a contravention of the laws and the rules, the Constitution of Belize, and the rights and prerogatives of those individuals. Nevertheless, it appears that the Governor General, whether wittingly or unwittingly, has been providing support and assistance to the Prime Minister, Cabinet, the House of Representatives, and other agents of the state to commit sedition against the head of state, which means that that Governor General then is definitely not playing her role as it's supposed to be, which is to serve at the pleasure of the head of state, unless that Governor General is not appraising the head of state as to what she is doing that brings her into disrepute. Then, under the category of committing sedition herself. I don't know how come she's not aware of that, or the Attorney General, who is her legal advisor, is not counseling her about that. But by behaving the way she's behaving and assenting to the various documents that she's assenting to grant permission that she don't have the authority or the powers to grant in the first place, because she is not authorized to grant any power to the local leaders them to overthrow the head of state. That's what sedition is. And I'm quite sure, as a learned person herself, she knows that. So it's not like I'm bringing her into repute by pointing out the obvious. Bringing her into disrepute is what I intended was to say just now, rather than bringing her into repute. The bottom line is that because under her seal, a bogus, illegal, unconstitutional document was assented to, and I'll make reference in terms of the name of that document, that is the PCC Act, which was a bastardized document put together by the Prime Minister and Cabinet, taken to the House of Representatives and voted on, sent over to the Governor General as a procedural matter for her to assent to, and she went ahead and assented to it. So she has egg on her face as well. Why? Either she did not know what the documents implied or intended to do, or she just didn't care. Why? She was serving two masters, with one being the preferred, that is, the interest of the Prime Minister, rather than the interest of the head of state, to whom she's accountable and at whose pleasure she serves. So then she becomes a part of the cabal of those who would commit sedition with her support. And she assented to that document for these people to go out under the guise that they were going out to give information to the people in terms of the constitution that they knew the people were not aware or knowledgeable about. And after they give this information to the people, the idea was that they would have compiled the people's response. Take that compilation of response to the Prime Minister and have the Prime Minister review it in Cabinet to bring out of Cabinet something that the House would be able to vote on, and the Governor General would assent to, put into or publish into the Gazette, and hoping that it will become law, even without fulfilling what the very same document required, that is, to have a plebiscite, a referendum, so that the people can have their say as regards to whether or not they wanted the constitution, first of all, tampered with, anything taken out of it, or any additional things put into it. Because the constitution is the means by which the country is legally authorized to be governed. And everybody is equal under the law, as per Section 6 of our Constitution. I presume, or maybe I'm being a bit presumptuous now, even to imply that I presume that the Governor General knows that, or at least should know that, or at least her advisors should advise her correctly about that. Because I'm sure the highest legal advisor to the Governor General is the Attorney General, on whose legal advice she depends, because she doesn't have an independent group of constitutional lawyers or other people to give her independent and salient advice other than those that are being brought from Cabinet via the Attorney General, who is also a member of Cabinet, by the way. And then the Deputy Governor General is also a part of Cabinet, because he's the Cabinet Secretary. So for anyone listening to me, to what I'm saying, and understands what I'm talking about, they'll realize that even just in those situations, to have different people occupying multiple positions that are contravening to each other's is a bastardization of the intent of the Constitution itself, or the operation of government or the state affairs. But I don't want to segue into that. That's a discussion for another night, hopefully. I'll proceed to read some more of this particular essay or commentary. And I'll say, we, referring to the people of Belize, are forgetting what the politicians do when they go to the Governor General for assent of powers to govern Belize. That is that, open bracket, they swear the oath of office and allegiance and fidelity to the Belize Constitution and country and people of Belize. That is what they do when they go to the Governor General to get assent of power to govern, because without that, they cannot and would not be allowed to govern. They cannot govern without getting the ascension of powers to govern. That power resides in the head of state and is delegated through the head of state to the Governor General to be passed on to whoever becomes the majority of the elected members of Congress. For that person then being delegated as the prospective Prime Minister to then swear that oath of allegiance and office. And that oath of allegiance and office and fidelity to the Constitution, as well as to the people of Belize and the country of Belize, requires them to render the services mandated as per our Constitution and those oaths that they swear. They're not swearing to run the country on their behalf, how they want, when they want, and to hell with the Constitution and any laws, and just do as they want as autocrats or as dictators. They are bounded to by their sworn oath to abide by the Constitution of Belize. First and foremost, not to themselves or their family members or their cronies or any of their party operatives or followers. When they get the power assented to them to govern Belize, it is because that power goes all the way out to every man, woman, and child living within the bounds of the boundaries of the country of Belize. It's not just for them or for their cronies or friends, like I said, or for their party members only. It's about governing the whole country. Those that voted for them and those that did not vote for them. That's the mandate that they take up after they win the election. And it is unseemly for them to attempt to use those powers firstly for themselves, then their family members, and then their friends and cronies, and their party operatives and party members, and pretend that, well, because it is their party that's running the business of managing the country, that then whatever part of the country that did not vote for them, their rights should be derogated, suppressed, oppressed, and repressed. That is not how democracy works. That's how it might work in some republics, in autocratic republics, or dictators' republics, but that is not how it's supposed to work in a state of Belize that the Constitution says is a democratic state. So the whole Constitution is on the chopping block, and I'm saying this as of tonight. I will not take up the whole of that subject tonight because the Prime Minister has received the recommendations from the PCC Commission, of which 1/3 of those members are in disagreement with what was turned over. But again, I'm preempting. I'm still insisting in getting into it because it's in my head and it's bothering me. But I had a specific structured program for tonight, and I want to stick with that. So I'll just say the last thing I'm going to say about this particular issue of the whole Constitution being assaulted, is the way I would pronounce it, is that we will take those up hopefully next week and probably another few weeks thereafter, because it's a lot of material. We got to bring to the public what originally was in the Constitution and what is now being attempted to change it for or eviscerate it for. So that's just a little heads up for the next few coming weeks that we'll be dealing with those matters, because these guys are hell-bent in forcing down our throats what we didn't ask them to get involved with in the first place. I'll just proceed with the rest of the program for tonight. I went on to say, in a democracy, the government is elected to govern within the bounds of the constitutions and laws. That is that the Constitution, as is stated in the Constitution of Belize, Part 1, Section 2, Subsection 1, the Constitution of Belize is the supreme law of the land or of the country. And if any other law, remember, every time I read or refer to that part of the Constitution, I always make a significant emphasis on other law, because I'm going to come back to it and explain why is it that I'm so emphatic when I make that particular part of the statement from the Constitution. If any other law is inconsistent with the Constitution, that other law, don't care how many of them get together and make that other law, because they're entitled, they're empowered to make laws But those laws must be made within the bounds of the Constitution. And as the Constitution goes on to say, if any other law is inconsistent with the Constitution, that other law, to the extent of its inconsistency, is void. I hope everybody understood what I was trying to say just now. And I didn't chop up the stuff in such a way that people lost context. Because I deliberately spoke the words of the Constitution, emphasizing as I did for effects. But in the emphasis on the effects, maybe I might have lost some people, and I hope that wasn't the case. That it was done deliberately, intentionally, with the idea of keeping people within the context of what is it that I'm trying to say, or what the Constitution says that I'm verbalizing. Those of you who have listened to our presentations on this platform for a while now, at least going on a couple of years, and beyond that for on the other platforms before then, would recognize that we take the Belize Constitution very seriously. And it is my intent, and had been my intent from the time that we launched this particular program, this particular platform. It was always our intent to educate our people about the Constitution, because we saw the government had no intention or interest in allowing the people to know about the Constitution. And they had an objective, an agenda to eviscerate the Constitution of Belize in lieu of a more pliable document, which they then would want to call our new Constitution, with our new identity, and the rest of bogus stuff that they've been playing games with. But like I said, I'll hang this present Constitution around their neck like an albatross. Not only I, my colleagues, and all others who cooperate with us to spread the message and to encourage people to learn about their Constitution so they can be in a better place and realize when they are being bamboozled, as well as to checkmate us to make sure that we're not saying anything that doesn't go like that. I went on to say, in addition to the above noted, in Belize, it is impermissible to make other laws. Remember, I emphasized about that other law a few times just now. Why? The Constitution says it is impermissible. Didn't use that specific word, but it classified anything that is an other law, regardless of who makes it, or other rules, regulations, protocols, or procedures that are not constitutionally based or supported, to the extent of its illegality. It is still illegal. It is still unconstitutional. You cannot take an unconstitutional process and just by declaration makes it into a constitutional process. If it's unconstitutional, it is unconstitutional. What part of that people don't want to understand or abide by baffles me. Because I presume that most other people who deals with these matters, especially those who help to draft laws for the legislator, they're supposed to be legal draft persons. They're supposed to have a certain level of knowledge, awareness. They're supposed to understand how laws are supposed to be put together. They're supposed to understand what constitutes a proper lawmaking or law drafting. And they're supposed to understand that you cannot draft a law that is retroactive. Because not too many places in the world you will find any legal draftsmen or any legal minds, any lawyers, or any judges that will entertain any craziness that has to do with retroactive laws. to attempt to create a retroactive law is also impermissible under most legal standings or standards as well. I'll proceed to read a little further on the same item. So I'll just read one little part of the statement over again, and in addition to the rest of that particular paragraph. I said, in Belize, it is impermissible to make other laws that are inconsistent with the Belize Constitution as stipulated under Section Part 1, Section 2, Subsection 1, which declares as null and void or unconstitutional and illegal any such other laws that does not come within the bounds of the Constitution or that is outside of the bounds of the Constitution. Any legislator could make any kind of law, in the world. I'm not just restricting my comments to Belize. Any part of the world that has a legislator, they can make just about any law that they want to make. Nobody can stop them. But at the end of the day, if that law is not constitutional, if it's outside of the bounds of the Constitution, or if it's trying to eviscerate the Constitution itself, or any portions of the Constitution that the Constitution itself says should not be eviscerated or cannot be tampered with, for example, such as the separation of powers. You cannot have a legislator decide, okay, one day they will get up and all 100% of the legislators in any country will decide, to hell with the Supreme Court, to hell with the legal system, we're going to just eviscerate anything that has to do with law and legal process or practices in our country. That's untenable. And in most countries, whether a democratic country or whether it is an autocratic country or a dictator country, most countries are countries of laws. The fact that some of them bastardize their law or make laws that are contrary to what their own constitution says doesn't justify them taking a bogus law, an unconstitutional law, and pass it and pretend that, well, because they pass it, it is now a constitutional law. It doesn't work like that, or it shouldn't work like that. So anytime in Belize you have a legislator make any other laws, those laws are to be considered as null and void and be stricken from the book. But a lot of time, these laws have to be taken through the court process for the judges to make those pronunciations, not I, or just any other civilian, or any other government officials. The court is the one that makes those decisions. So if the legislators, they go ahead and make bastardized laws and put those laws on the book, unless those laws contravene somebody's right at some point in time and somebody gets affected, and that person can take that law for judicial review if they can afford it, by the way, because the legal system is there and your rights are there and the Constitution protects your rights. But if those bastardized laws are not challenged in court, then they sit on the book, and a lot of people become victimized by them. They are used against a lot of people who don't have the means to be able to afford a proper defense. They can't afford a lawyer. And in our country, they don't give no free legal support or free law assistance. Once in a while, somebody might volunteer to help somebody out. But when it comes to challenging the government, not too many lawyers want to put themselves up against the government pro bono or for no fee at all. So most of the time, the government get away with making these laws, put them on the book, victimize people, and people don't get a chance to challenge those laws and have them struck down. So therefore, those people suffer consequences because of those illegal or bastardized laws. And it's not because the lawmakers don't know that they're doing something wrong. They willfully do those things Some of them need to go to jail, as a matter of fact. But the way the system is set up is that you can't jail a lawmaker in the House of Representatives or in the Senate for creating bad law, or you can't charge them a fee or a penalty because they make laws to immunize themselves from any such wrongdoing. Now, if they could be held liable individually for the damage that those laws are caused, then we'd have better lawmaking and we'd have a better society. But because these rascals, they know that they can hide behind the power, the purse of the government for a defense of themselves and their illegal conduct, they go ahead and make bastardized laws. They go ahead and commit crimes under the color of law against the civilians who give them the power to become lawmakers. And it seems like some of them, they relish in that type of behavior. Because from what I can recall, the present PUP government that just won a general election is the same government that had been elected just before then for the last 5 years, 4.5 actually, because they didn't serve the full 5-year term, they served 4.5. But for all intents and purposes, they are the same people. And from the time they got into office, almost, I wouldn't say exactly all, so that's why I'm prefacing what I'm saying by saying almost all the laws that they made were about derogating somebody's rights or being punitive to some people or about them being able to help themselves or exculpate some of their own colleagues or their family members or to rip off the assets of the country, the lands, jobs, assets, any and everything that is not nailed down properly, they walk away with. That is not what good governance is all about or should be about. I'm straying again a little bit. I have a lot of stuff in my brains that's spinning around, and I'd like to be able to get them all out, but I only have one mouth, so I have to restrict myself and go back to the prepared program instead of diverting as I now like to do. I have a bad habit. And those of you who listen to me by now probably realize that I get a little bit worked up every once in a while. I get hot under the collar, and instead I try to keep in what's flowing through my head. I try to spit it out before my brain busts. If my vein in my head busts, then that would be a bigger problem than just to try to spit out a little bit of thing once in a while to reprieve myself of the pressures. It's like an escape valve. So please forgive my indulgence in straying every once in a while from the focus of the topic, but I do so with good intent. It's not that I'm trying to bamboozle anybody or say anything that doesn't go so. Everything come out of my mouth is measurable by the facts, and I don't want to be found wanting. So I went on to say the state is already empowered with a police department being vested with police powers, open bracket, to lawfully arrest and remand suspected criminals for prosecution and jailing with the help of other security services or personnel. That is that the police department in our country of Belize is already empowered under state powers or state authority to arrest anybody that commits a criminal act or that is alleged to have committed a criminal act, and to take them into remand, into custody, and being put on remand until their case comes up for hearing. And therefore, if they got to go and get somebody that has military weapons and they're scared as the regular police to go and approach these people or to arrest them, then they can get the assistance of the BDF, the Coast Guard, the any other systems of the country's security service. That's what it's there for. As compared to what our current knucklehead police officers at the highest command and their bosses and their boss, the commissioner, current commissioner, as a matter of fact, as well as the previous one. The previous one was bad enough, but this new one is trying to come off like he's the baddest man in town. He's worse than the previous one. He's going to do what the previous one was doing illegally, immorally, and unethically. And who is to challenge him or do anything about it? Because he don't arrest himself, and his subordinates are not going to arrest him. And he's telling us that he's going to plead to his boss, the Minister of Home Affairs, to go ahead and implement SOEs, not the way they were being done before, for a month or two, even though they were being done illegally and bastardized. He wants that process to continue, but to increase the term that they have those things for. That is to say, go from 6 months to even up to a year. The court has already ruled exactly as we have been telling them for all these years, that they were bastardizing our laws, they were committing crimes, and now they have to pay the people, some of them that, based on that particular ruling of that particular case, they have to pay them money now. So what the jackals they do now, instead of wait for the PCC, as they were saying before, that they can't do nothing until the PCC finishes its work, and after the PCC finishes work, you have to go through all the procedures to become whatever they put out there to become law, even though it becomes bogus law because it's not being done correctly. And as a matter of fact, they're trying to break or violate or be violative of the present constitution. In our country, we can only have one constitution at a time. There's no two constitutions. There's no constitution of Belize as well as a PCC constitution. That's a bunch of crap. It's a bamboozling process that they're hoodwinking you, the Belizean public, with. They come over here to the States to say, well, they have also included the Belizeans abroad. Okay? When in fact, they have made a law to stop us from being able to vote. So how the hell are we going to impact that process? That is either to agree or disagree with them eviscerating the Constitution. We don't have a vote. So they came over here to bamboozle us, sit down, drink a few, drinks and eat a little bit of food and whatever, sat and hobnob around the place, and went back home, and then went home boasting that, like they got the questions of the Belizeans abroad, or the what do they call it? Anyway, make I stop this. But I mean, that's the kind of jackals that we are dealing with, looking for any opportunity at any given time to bamboozle somebody, to constantly lie, and they keep getting caught with their own mouth lying, and then they turn around and they try to find excuses for it. So I wasn't going to comment about the constitutional changes yet that they're making, except this one that I have here on, which is about the SOEs. The judge ruled to say that they have violated the Constitution as regards to the SOEs, and they have to pay these people as per the judgment that the judge ruled on. They don't want to pay these people, so they can hold them out now until they could go ahead and make the law to retroactively declare what they were doing according to the judge who said it was illegal. Their law now is going to say retroactively what they were doing was not illegal based on the new law that they're trying to pass right now. That's to tell you the level of evil that these people contemplate in their heart and their mind and their soul. Okay? That's the kind of mindset that these jackals have. and the respect and consideration and regards that they have for us, the Belizean people. Always trying to take us for a bunch of idiots. In fact, they declare, as per the Prime Minister's own word, that Belizeans don't have no talent. And I guess that is part of the reason why they treat us and relate to us the way they do. Because only they have talent. They don't want to put Imcock in place because that would checkmate their talent. Their talent to dispossess the country and its people of their patrimony. They don't want no checks and balances regards to those matters. But they want to create illegal laws. They want to commit crimes under the color of law, create illegal laws, bastardize the Constitution in order for them to arrest somebody who breaks the law. Mind you, the SOE are illegals, and they want to use an illegal process to stop illegal conduct in the country. Laughable, man. I mean, I'm laughing, but it hurts to realize that that's the kind of jackals you're dealing with and the kind of nefarious behavior that these jackals refer to. And it seems like the people are well satisfied with the process as is, because no more than a couple of months ago, they gave them another 5-year term. Then the election wasn't even due until November of this year. The hurry came up with a date to have that election, to get it behind them, because they were being challenged in court, and they had already acknowledged, their lawyers had already acknowledged in court that they realized they were in contravention of the Constitution, and they just wanted a little extra time to go and correct their errors. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an oversight. It was an error, but a deliberate error to maximize their possibilities for election gain. And worst of all, we had always known our country as being a country of law and order. And we could have almost said ahead of time how a judgment or a case would turn out to be. Why? Because we have 1,200 years of jurisprudence backing up our legal and lawful system. So the system is so old to the point that most people would be able to predict ahead of time the outcome of most cases, because of how many different cases that we have that constitute or stare decisis case law patterns of ruling, to the extent now where we have these imported judges who come in to operate for a fee and a contract, and who don't want their contract to be disturbed by the government, who then cooperate with the government to bastardize the laws of the country and the legal system of the country, to dismiss constitutional cases by just ignoring it rather than ruling on it, and then get in open mic on the public airwaves and allow themselves to be caught strategizing as to how they're going to bastardize the Constitution itself, and to dismiss the cases that are brought before them for judicial review and for legal case management process. And then, as a result, commit a further crime against the public in general, because they are not holding any fidelity to the Constitution, any fidelity to the legal system, and they're not even respecting their own oath. They have what you call a professional conduct that they're supposed to abide by. And even that they're not abiding by. That is that they're so beholden to the contract that the government holds over their head that they can't fall afoul of the government. So therefore they are going to bend the legal and judicial part of our governance to meet compliance to the executive requirements or needs. That is contrary to to proper legal temperament and legal process and procedures or protocols. It is unseemly that is what our Belizean High Court has become. The laughing stock of the Caribbean Court of Justice and the law and the Caribbean Commonwealth area, as probably other countries. Because when that particular judge lied on his own self in public on a live case that was before his presence, and then for all intents and purposes exposed another judge, one of his other colleagues, to be part of his conniving and treacherous um, um, behind the scene manipulation of the legal system. He failed miserably in so many different ways, and yet he has not been moved off the bench. Yet he's there to be ruling on other matters when his judicial temperament is in question. The government is going to go back for him and still keep him on board. Why? He serves their purpose. They don't give a hoot about the wrongfulness of his decision or the or his illegal conduct or his mischief making and all the other stuff that he's involved with. They could care less. When in fact the man is supposed to be on a judicial what do they call it? Sanction. Okay? Because no judge at the Supreme Court level should have to find himself in the situation that gentleman has allowed himself to be in, and the other judge that he was talking to on the live microphone, as well as the cases that he ruled against, or that the other judge that he was talking to, ruled against, that were inappropriate and unconstitutional because they did not hold fidelity to the Constitution of Belize. I'll go one step further with this particular item. I'll read another little part. I'm almost at the end of it, and so I'll just try to cover the last two pieces and then get this over with, and then hopefully be able to go into one of the other parts of the presentation for the evening. I went on to say, the state is already empowered with a police department which is being vested with police powers. That is to say, to lawfully arrest and remand suspected criminals for prosecution and jailing with the help of other security services. Any attempt or power grab to violate or amend the Constitution that allows the executive branch of government to arbitrarily and capriciously be punitive and to also derogate people's fundamental civil rights in a mass way would then constitute a mass violation, a mass political ill will, and a bastardization and violation of the Belize Constitution. And that was the ending of that presentation or that particular article. I still don't see anyone in the background, so I'll just proceed again. I had here. Okay, let me go somewhere else. Pick up something else from somewhere else. Just a second, please. No. Okay. Just give me a break. I'll just like to read this part here about the PCC. I said I was going to go into that stuff in the next couple of weeks because it's going to be lengthy. It's a lot of material to cover. And I have this one particular item that I want to get rid of before we start next Monday on that particular trajectory, because that trajectory, um, before I open this stuff, I'm going to stipulate right now. The report that was submitted to the Prime Minister, the part that we have available, is about 129 pages. Not all the pages are full page information or filled up with information. Some of them are like a quarter page, some of them are half a page and like that. But it's still a substantive amount of pages, and the items on those pages, in order to flesh them out adequately, rather than just read them through. If it's a matter of reading them through, it could be done in one night. 100 pages, half a page, some of them, you could do that in a jiffy. But that's not what we are attempting to do on this particular show. We're attempting to inform, expose, and elucidate people, teach people about the Belize Constitution as is right now, and hopefully correlate that this present Constitution that we have that's active, correlate that with the new ideas and thoughts that these guys are bantering around that they want to use to create the new Constitution. Okay? And that's going to take a little bit, because the current Constitution is about 120-something, 130 pages. And the one that they have out right now is 129. And most people in Belize do not know their Constitution, which is unfortunate, because by the time you come out of high school, you must could have read at least 100 pages as a required or mandated part of your civic class reading, which, even though you would not be a lawyer by the time you finish reading, but at least you would have known or learned enough that some of you might be encouraged to become lawyers or go study lawyers, legal stuff abroad or whatever, and become lawyers. The bottom line is that if it's just for reading's sake, reading the Constitution of your country, especially Belize, as small as that Constitution is, should be not only required reading, but desired reading. Everybody should want to know what's in there. But we cannot present all of that stuff for you. Not only just read it through or deal with all of what is in there, but explain it, contextualize it, and make it a living document for you as to how it affects you on a day-to-day basis. And then still be able to come now with this new revised stuff that they're trying to push in there and explain away the difference. When most people doesn't even know what's in there, how are they going to understand the context of what is it that these guys are trying to do with it? Even though these guys are saying, well, these are ideas that came from the public surveys that they did. What the hell they want to survey people about their Constitution when they haven't taught them about it, or the people don't even know about it? We on this program have been doing this for probably 2 years now. Okay? At least once a week, and sometimes twice. And sometimes the 3 programs we do on constitutional issues or legal matters or case matters and so on. And for those 2 years plus, we still have not covered all the items in the Constitution. Why? Of course, we only have a 1 hour and a half show, 90-minute show, right? But the bottom line is, it's going to take, at least from my estimation, at least another 3 months of how I'm pulling this process, contextualizing this process, discussing, debating, arguing this process, elucidating on this process, and taking in other people's rebuttal on some of these items or issues, and also allow the Constitution to speak for itself, the current Constitution that we have, in regards to what it says, and then to conclude on – why is it that these jackals want to make the modifications they're trying to make, And I could just as well tell you on one particular one, they want to get rid of the Governor General. Now, how are you going to get rid of the Governor General when the Governor General is a position in the Constitution, written in the Constitution, that you, the Belize government, have no power or authority over? How the hell are you going to decide to get rid of that? Not to say the least, you're trying to get rid of that Governor General and the Governor General boss, the head of state. How the hell are you going to do that without committing sedition? And for the last at least year, well, probably more than 1 year, I have been speaking on the matter of seditious conducts and behavior and activities, to the point where some elitist individuals try to blow me off to say, well, why is it that I'm always taking up these heavy subjects and I'm trying to deal with these matters or speak to these matters as if I have more authority and more power than the whole legal systems back home? That is to say, the lawyers that are delinquent and nowhere to be found, who are competent and capable to deal with these matters or pronounce on these matters, they're nowhere to be found. And even the judges then continue to bastardize the existing laws. And when I get up and I start to speak about what they're doing and why is it they do what they do, why is it that they do wrong, I'm being questioned. Why don't the hell they get around to reading their Constitution, learn it, contextualize it with previous case laws that have already been decided on? They don't have to go through the whole history of all the different cases then that were won or lost. Just deal with the ones that are cited by the judges when they make their ruling. Get a basic or a cursory education on legal matters or legal affairs. And then come to me and talk to me and tell me what is it that I'm doing wrong. But instead, they don't want to learn what they need to know that they didn't born knowing. They don't want to spend the time necessary. But then they want to come and have chit-chat with me and derogate what I'm trying to do, and they're not replacing the effort by doing better. So most of the time I just humor them. I laugh my way through the process. I pretend like, well, I'm tired of the discussion, and I just, beg for an excuse or a pardon and go about my business, because no sense beating your head against a wall expecting that the wall will interpret your brains for you. All it will do is bash your brains and smash it out. And there goes you. I'm not inclined to be so, what they call masochistic, right? I'm not that masochistic. I'm not going to self-destroy because I'm frustrated that other people are trying to be a detractor. They're entitled to being a detractor. That's their right. You have a right to have ideas, opinions, and express those ideas and opinions. That's what the Constitution says, and I believe in the Constitution. So who am I to say, well, I believe in it only when it works out for me? No, it's for all of us. We are equal under the law. That's what the Constitution of Belize says. No, I'm in the States. I'm in the United States, right? It's a different Constitution, by the way. But let me read this stuff here that I wanted to read just now, like I said, because the time is getting away from me while I was commenting just now. And the reason why I made that little comment just now is because of the fact that that is because of the fact that I'm heading into that major undertaking, and I want people to, those of you who listen to us, to have an idea of what is it that we are attempting to do on your behalf and on behalf of the whole country. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, these guys have the impression that they're entitled to and have the authority vested in them to transgress our Constitution and to haul and pull it any which way they want, and nobody will stop them from doing so. I beg to differ. And like I said, I was just preempting what I was intending to do by giving a heads up that, yes, we will be taking on those matters, but it's so much of a big task that it will take at least probably 2.5 to 3 months to deal with all the substantive matters. And I believe that by then those idiots would have already tried to run to the house and pass everything in one day, maybe, because that's how they roll. But nevertheless, we'll be with them at every step of the way and probably a couple steps ahead, because that's what's required to deal with jackals like those. Okay, so then let me as I indicated earlier, the PCC has submitted a final report to the Prime Minister, even though they had not completed their task to educate the people in order to get a true perspective of the people. They did not tell the people that they wanted to be elected on the basis that that is what they were going to do after being elected. They just try to jam this agenda that they had in their back pocket down our throat. But I have no intention of swallowing, so they will have to push a little harder in order to get down my throat. And even when it's down my throat, after I push it, that no means that I want to digest it. I want to regurgitate it. I want to vomit it back out. It's not palatable to me. Anyhow, I have another item here that I had written in regards to the same PCC issue, right? And I thought that I would have, instead of reading this particular item here, which is just another retort of mine to what somebody else had said about it. As a matter of fact, one of the commissioners who was agreeing that the other 10 commissioners who disagreed with what they were doing and said so, he was trying to like carry water for those that agreed with doing what they did, which is to attempt to bastardize our constitution and lend his own credibility, which is substantive among the population of the country, to give ear and comfort to this treacherous undertaking. And I objected to his objection of the other 10 commissioners. I had told a few of them before they were constituted into a commission, when the matter was still under the jurisdiction of the previous incarnation of that same group, that is the Constitution Reform Commission, was the predecessor to this present PCC. And before they formed themselves into the Constitution Reform Commission, I had spoken with a few of the prospective members, and I told them, as a matter of fact, I should have said, I told you so. That's exactly what it's turning out to be, is what I gave them a heads up on. Even though they were laughing me off the face of the earth at that time, because they were saying, I'm making a fool of myself because they have not even been constituted into a proper organized commission yet. And I'm already telling them the outcome. Poor kids. Anyhow, let me leave this stuff alone. Let me stop get cute and try to be funny, try to lighten up the air, because, like I say, every once in a while, my brains can get tight in my head, and I feel like the only way to release some of the intention, talk the issue out, right? Instead of keep it in. Anyhow, this particular item here, on the 23rd of May, Leonard Brackett went on to say the following comments were commentary, not just comments. The following commentary was made by Leonard Brackett as a retort to Mr. Louis M. Wade Jr., who had made a post of another commentary regarding a letter from some of the PCC, which is the People's Constitution Commission members, who who were disappointed and who had disagreed with the submitted final report. So I call this particular retort of mine, in quotation, PCC submitted final report. And then I went on to say, open comma, disappointment, close comma. I said, Mr. Louis Wade Jr., which was the name of the gentleman, very prominent individual in our society. You know, he's a well-recognized pastor, a man of the cloth, respectable person, somebody that, myself, I had great respect for the gentleman as well. I still do, as a matter of fact, not just had, I still do. Because man, let me say it like this. The worth of the man salt is based on who and what he is and what he has been. And that cannot be taken away from him. Which is why I'm saying the gentleman is a substantive gentleman in terms of his acumen. He's well schooled. He's a good preacher. He's a knowledgeable person. He has good temperament generally. But as regards to this particular issue, he had some oversights, and he lent his credentials and credibility to what I would consider to be, as I said to him and others, a treacherous effort, an effort to commit sedition, which accrue negatively to my country, and therefore I could not countenance the idea of, just let him get away with saying what he was saying without my having to dip my mouth into it and have my say as well. So he was entitled to his say and his way, and so likewise myself. Of course, this was all a public affair. He put out in public his comments. And the rules of the game are that if you make it public, if you deal with public affairs in the public, speak to them in public, then you shouldn't feel aggrieved if somebody address your public statements with further clarity or contextualization, or if they are aggrieved of what you put out there as not being the best of what you could have done or what the public deserves. And they have a right to make their comment on your commentary. That's the rule of the game. Whether that comment that they make is correct, whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong, that's their comment. We are all entitled to the same rights. Even though we may not always have the same perspective, same opinion, same idea, same knowledge, same point of reference, we are not always right. But that don't mean that we don't have a right to our comments, whether good or bad, or whether wrong or right. But I had to take up my own effort in order to point out what I thought was a bit wrong. Because, like I said, the gentleman comes well and highly recommended and credentialed. Right? He's also the owner of a TV broadcasting station. Okay, or at least he's one of the preeminent individuals on that particular platform, and therefore is also widely respected for his views, and how he carries himself. Right. Besides that, he's a senator in the Senate of Belize, in the Belize Senate. So there are a lot of the gentleman, like I said, is a high-powered person in our society. So one would believe, or at least I would believe, that by that measure, the gentleman would want to stay within the bounds of reasonableness. I wouldn't even say righteousness, because then that would go to questioning the gentleman's pastors or ministerial issues and efforts. And I don't want to put myself there. I don't belong in the area of questioning nobody's religion and or their political, well, I wouldn't say, yeah, I don't even question people's political motives, as a matter of fact, because they're entitled to it, whether right or wrong. But when it comes to the actual effect or the outcome or the damage to be done or being done to my country and people, I, as a vanguard of my country and people, have to step up. And sometimes, when you step up, you mash people toe or their corn, like we were saying in Belize, no? You step on people's corn, and you shouldn't be offended if they push you down or push you off of their foot, because they're the ones suffering the pain, not you. But nevertheless, I'm getting a little word in my explanation or prefacing and whatever else not. No, so let me go back to the subject matter. I said, Mr. Lewis M. Wade Jr., sir, he had made a in the last paragraph of the statement that he had made, he had used the word despicable. And I was kind of flabbergasted that he, at his level, would use such a word as part of his commentary on the subject matter that was being dealt with at the time. So I just retorted back to him the last critical word that he had uttered. Of all the other words he had used in the whole of his essay or dissertation or commentary, he dared to use this one particular word, despicable. So I put this word back as the beginning of my retort to him, all in cap, despicable in quotation, and I said, despicable, you said, as your last word, open bracket, as inferring, understanding, and supporting seditious conspiratorial assignments. That is that he was chosen to be on this particular commission as well. And he was chosen, like I said before, for his credentials, for what the gentleman brought to the table. But the intent and the objective of the proposal, the proponents of this task, that is being the Prime Minister and all the other people engaged, who had a hidden agenda that was not told to these people. In other words, they just got these people together, all these powerful elite people in our society, good people, by the way, most of them. I have no axe to grind with most of them, other than the fact that, like I was telling them from the beginning, they were being used, misused, and at the end of the process, they was going to be abused and dashed away. And like I could say now, I told you so. When in fact, I told them so, right? So when I say I told you so, I'm trying to be facetious or funny about having the privilege to have lived long enough to see what I was saying to them coming true exactly as I told them. It's not that I'm trying to mock them, because at the end of the day, that don't make me a better person, or add nothing positive or better to me. But it still hurts to know that even after lending themselves to go through the whole process and having done all of what they did, they're realizing and knowing that the Prime Minister was not going to take everything that they gave to him and put it forward as the final recommendation, but that he was going to decide between himself and the members of cabinet what bits and pieces they wanted to pick and use. After all this effort that was expended by these good people and all the millions of dollars and everything else, that was expended, in addition to all the government support and everything else that came, as part of the whole package, to get this far in that process, to end up trying to bamboozle the Belizean people into changing and accepting blame for having their constitution being changed into something that serve not their purpose or interest, but the interests and purposes of the jackals who expect to benefit from what they're trying to do. But they don't want to put their neck on the block as conspirators and seditious persons. They want somebody else to commit sedition on their behalf so that they can run away with the power accrued. Nevertheless, I went on to say to Mr. Lewis M. Wade Jr., And I'm making no apologies for discussing this matter in public, because the damage being done to the Constitution and the people and country of Belize is very much public, which is why I had to take this issue up and address the good gentleman. Not because I have any personal animosity towards him as a person, but that I'm disappointed and I disagree with his perspective that he was trying to put out there, all in support of something that by now most Belizeans should recognize and understand and know does not accrue to any positive benefit and well-being of our country. We have a lot of major crises going on in our country, both at the local and international levels. And we should be preparing ourselves to do those battles rather than fighting among ourselves and or dividing ourselves and becoming weaker. Because those other battles will not go away. We will just get steamrolled over. I went on to say, in pursuance of revamping or eviscerating the Belize Constitution in favor of a more compliant or pliable constitution, being excised of all British vestiges and head of state, inclusive, which you and others, fifth columnists, abhor, which is to say dislike, and have stipulated before on your Plus TV station. That is, that I'm talking to the gentleman, or I'm referring to what the gentleman had commented on. I'm trying to put him in a situation where he recognizes that he used all his acumen, all his skills, everything that he brought to the table to aid and abet sedition against my country, and I didn't take lightly for that. I still respect the gentleman, but I went on to say to him, was not Judas one of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ? Double question mark, double exclamation mark. That is very emphatic, in other words. It wasn't just a question for question's sake. It was a cynical question, basically. I was being overly emphatic and dramatic with the question. Was not Judas one of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ? Double question, double exclamation. And I went on to say further, you as a patriotic Belizean, which I recognize the gentleman to be, right? By virtue of what he brought to the table and his history. The gentleman, like I said, he comes well credentialed and well spoken for, and he's a humanitarian. I mean, the gentleman had so much power behind him, so much personal acumen, that I was disappointed in knowing that he would accumulate all those things during his lifetime just to come and put it on the line for a bastardized process that I am definitely sure he knows is not right. Of course, I know other things that I'm not leading on to or saying here on the show. Okay? And that's just part of the way the process is. But I'm just commenting on the things that I can comment on for public purpose or public consumption. I'm also somebody who is steeped into religion. So who am I to question anybody else's religion or to infer that it is based on a person's religion that actually motivates their, conduct in regards to a particular issue? Because remember now, we're discussing a particular issue, okay? The Constitution of Belize, which affects every Belizean, or everybody, not only just Belizean, as a matter of fact, everybody that's within the boundaries of the territorial integrity of a country by the name of Belize. That Constitution affects, and they are under that constitution. So you see how important this matter is? It's not just a simple matter or a fly-by-night matter. I'm at the end of my time, and I still have about 10 minutes more of articulation of this particular presentation here. I would like to ask if you would indulge me in just finishing up this program, because I really need to get out of this particular stuff. I can't do like I've done in the past, where we truncate and come back on another feature night to deal with it. I need to get rid of this particular item because, like I mentioned earlier, we have the whole constitution revamping process that's going on. The report has been submitted. We want to take that report and compare it to what exists currently as our constitution, so people can start understanding what the damage is or will be. Whether they understand it or know it or not, or whether or not the legislator decide or the prime minister decide that instead of going to the legislator and have them legislate it, and instead of them have a plebiscite, which they have been dodging for quite a while now, in terms of the Referendum Act. If the people are asked to vote on this matter, then they must know, or at least should know, what they're voting on. It's unconscionable to have to go and vote on something that you don't know enough about. When you go and cast your vote, you should know what you're voting for or against. As a matter of fact, those that vote are still better off than those that deliberately decide not to get engaged or not to vote any at all. But the importance of even casting your vote is to be aware of what is it you're casting your vote for. And all we are trying to do on this particular platform here is to try and help you to educate yourself, or to help you get the necessary information that is available that you might not get for yourself or aggregate onto yourself. We are not telling you how to vote or who to vote for, or what to do with your vote or whatever. We can't get into that. That's not our prerogative. All we are trying to do, like I said on this platform, is to enlighten you, to bring to your attention things that people are trying to hide away from you. The more ignorant or less knowledge you have about what they're trying to bamboozle you about, gives them the upper hand in terms of succeeding at their agenda. Please give me 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes that I was asking about just now. Let me see if I can wrap this stuff up, because I need to get rid of it so I can, for the next 3 months or so, deal with that other stuff. It's major and it's critical and prescient. I said to the good gentleman, you as a patriotic Belizean and as a Christian minister, a man of the cloth, and a senator of Belize, as well as a former PCC member and a mass media persona or influencer, you seem to have understood your assignment very well, open bracket, as PM Briseño would say or expect. Why you and the other individuals were selected for him to hide behind. That is that on one previous occasion, I wrote another essay before this PCC was constituted, when they were under the Constitution Reform Commission. I wrote an article and I titled it, I said that the Prime Minister was trying to hide behind this group, right? Trying to recruit this group, put them out there with false pretexts and agendas that did not comport with the agenda that was ultimately intended to be achieved. In other words, these people were just going to be used, misused, and abused. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister was still going to go ahead and do what he wanted anyhow, because He therefore went on to write the PCC Act, take it to Congress, vote on it, passed it, with the idea that having passed it into law, that then they would have the right and the power or authority vested in them to take money from the consolidated funds to finance the project. Nobody in the country asked them to undertake that project, to wholesale mess with the Constitution or to eviscerate it. Nobody gave them any authority. Nobody voted for them for them to do that. They didn't give us any notice that that was part of their plan, or that they wanted us to do that. Because messing with our country's constitution is a major undertaking, especially if they're intending to take away public rights, intending to create martial law rules so that they could govern by martial law and do all kind of other craziness that they were proposing. I went on to say, I'm just about ready to finish now. I went on to say further, you, like everyone else, I said to him, the gentleman that I named, are entitled to your ideas and opinions and conclusions that are God-given and constitutionally protected rights, so far under the present Belize Constitution. See how I contextualize that? All those things are true. Not a word was false or pretentious, or not a word was derogatory, at least in this particular paragraph. I'll repeat it for emphasis. I said to him, you, like everyone else, are entitled to your ideas and opinions and conclusions. That is what is stated in our Constitution under the freedom of expression. Okay? And that's a God-given and constitutionally protected right. So far, under the present Belize Constitution. And what I was intimating there is that it may not be so after we eviscerate this present Constitution in favor of the next pliable Constitution that will grant them the power to take over the authority, to vanish the head of state, and to vanish the Governor General, and to have the Prime Minister be elected directly. Not the way we do it now, where the majority decides who the Prime Minister should be, but that the Prime Minister would be scheduled to be elected directly by the people, taking over the powers of the Governor General unto himself and the power of the head of state unto himself, just as I had pointed out to them many years ago and have been doing so ever since then till now. That is that these jackals are only interested in trying to hijack the powers of the country with the assistance of the people to continue mismanage and run roughshod over the people with the people's power. Okay? I close out by saying to the good gentleman, God's continuous blessings on you and rest of family and Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad, always. And since I'm so far beyond my limitations in terms of time for tonight, I'm at 1:39 going on 1:40, and I'll hope to finish up by at least 1:42. So I'll just thank Ms. Rubina Forte for tuning in tonight and blessing us with her presence, and all the other individuals. Let me see, there's a few other people there. Let me see what else is it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm trying to close up. So, Ms. Rubina and the rest of the people that have posted, I'll be back with you as soon as the show is over. And I send out my links to the different people. I'll be answering your comments. Thank you again, Belizeans at home and abroad, for tuning in tonight while the show was live. And for those who will be tuning in afterwards at their own convenience, we want to say thank you for all the past support and all the sharing of our materials. We hope that whatever I had to say tonight may accrue to some public benefit to our listeners, and that they have been blessed with some additional information or thought processes that would allow them to have been a bit more in tune with what's going on. And we hope to bring much more of it to you, upcoming Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays show. Again, good night. My name is Leonard Brackett, and I was your chairman for tonight's program. And this was the 300 program, number 300. And we're happy that we got to this point. And those of you who have not listened to us, we hope that you'll take the opportunity. You can go back and listen to just about any of our programs. And I'm sure you'll be better off for having done so. Thank you very much again, and good night. God bless. We're gone.